Confidence is not something you're born with, and it's not something you wait for. Real confidence is trained. Most people think confidence comes from feeling ready, from being praised, from winning. That's why their confidence collapses the moment things go wrong. Stoic philosophy teaches something radically different. Confidence is not an emotion. It's a byproduct of daily discipline. It's built when you do what you said you would do, even when no one is watching, especially when you don't feel like it. The Stoics didn't rely on motivation. They relied on habits. Habits that trained the mind to stay calm under pressure. Habits that removed dependence on approval. Habits that made a person steady, grounded, and unbreakable, regardless of circumstances. In this video, you'll learn 7 powerful Stoic habits that rewire your confidence every single day. Not loud confidence, not arrogant confidence, but the kind that doesn't shake, because it doesn't depend on anything outside of you. Stay until the end. This is how confidence becomes permanent. 1. Control your inner dialogue. Stoic foundation of unshakable confidence. Confidence does not begin with how you look. It does not begin with how you speak to others. It begins with how you speak to yourself, especially when things go wrong. Most people lose confidence long before anyone else sees it. They lose it internally. A mistake happens and the inner voice attacks. A setback appears and the inner dialogue turns emotional. Criticism comes and the mind starts building stories. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. I knew this would happen. The Stoics understood something most people never notice. You're not disturbed by events. You're disturbed by your judgments about them. Confidence collapses when your inner voice is chaotic, dramatic, or hostile. And here's the hard truth. If your own mind doesn't respect you, no amount of external success will make you confident. The Stoic does not silence thoughts. He disciplines them. This is where modern thinking gets it wrong. Stoicism is not about positive thinking. It is not about repeating affirmations. It is not about convincing yourself that everything is fine. Stoicism is about accuracy. When something goes wrong, the Stoic asks, what exactly happened? What part of this is under my control? What is merely noise? Instead of saying, I failed, I'm weak, he says, this outcome failed. I can adjust my method. Instead of, they disrespected me, I'm worthless, he says, their behavior reflects their state, not my value. This shift is subtle, but devastatingly powerful, because confidence erodes when your mind exaggerates. Confidence grows when your mind becomes precise. The Stoic trains his inner voice to be calm, direct, unsympathetic to drama, loyal to truth, not cruel, not soft, steady. When pressure hits, the Stoic doesn't panic internally. He corrects. He doesn't insult himself. He instructs himself, and over time, something profound happens. Your mind stops being a threat. It becomes an ally. You stop second-guessing every move. You stop collapsing under criticism. You stop needing reassurance. Because the most important voice in your life is no longer working against you. You don't need positive thoughts. You need disciplined ones. This habit alone rewires confidence at the root. Because a man who controls his inner dialogue cannot be easily shaken from the outside. 2. Do one hard thing. Every day, how confidence is built through proof, not belief. Confidence is not built by thinking about confidence. It is built by evidence. Most people wait to feel confident before they act. Stoics act and let confidence follow. This is one of the most misunderstood truths about confidence. Confidence is not a mood. It is a record of promises kept to yourself. Every day, your brain is silently asking one question. Can I trust this person? And that person is you. Each time you avoid discomfort, your brain records, he says things, but doesn't follow through. Each time you quit early, delay, or choose comfort over discipline, his words don't mean much. And slowly, confidence erodes. Not dramatically, quietly. The Stoics reversed this process with one brutal but simple habit. Do one hard thing every day, on purpose. Not a heroic thing, not something for recognition, a difficult thing you would normally avoid. It could be training when you don't feel like it, starting a task you've been delaying, having a conversation you've been avoiding, sitting with discomfort instead of escaping it. The task itself doesn't matter. The signal does. Every time you do the hard thing, your nervous system learns, I act even when it's uncomfortable. That message builds confidence faster than motivation ever could. Why? Because confidence is self-trust, and self-trust is built through consistency under resistance. The Stoics didn't rely on inspiration, they relied on discipline. They understood that a man who keeps small promises to himself becomes unbreakable over time. Not loud, not arrogant, solid. When life applies pressure, your system doesn't panic, because it's familiar with difficulty. Discomfort stops meaning danger. Resistance stops meaning threat. You begin to move through pressure instead of away from it. And here's the compounding effect most people miss. Once you prove to yourself daily that you can do hard things, your identity shifts. You stop asking, can I handle this? You start assuming, I'll handle it, like I always do. That assumption is confidence, not because you feel brave, but because history is on your side. Confidence is built when promises to yourself are kept. Do this habit long enough, and confidence stops being something you chase. It becomes something you expect from yourself. 3. Detach from outcomes. How Stoics make confidence unshakable. One of the fastest ways confidence breaks is when it's tied to outcomes. Most people don't notice this connection, but it controls their inner world. When things go well, they feel confident. When things fail, they doubt themselves. Their confidence rises and falls with results they never fully controlled. That is not confidence, that is emotional dependence. The Stoics trained something far more stable. They separated confidence from outcomes and anchored it in conduct. This distinction changes everything. You can prepare perfectly and still lose. You can act with integrity and still be misunderstood. You can give your best effort and still fall short. If your confidence depends on winning, you will always live on edge, because life does not guarantee results. And the Stoic accepted this reality early. He understood, outcomes belong to fate, conduct belongs to you. So instead of asking, did I succeed? He asked, did I act according to my principles? This single question protects confidence under pressure, because when confidence is based on how you act, not how things turn out, it becomes immune to failure. You stop collapsing after setbacks. You stop inflating after praise. You stop outsourcing your self-worth to the world. This does not make you passive. It makes you resilient. Detached does not mean indifferent. It means unentangled. You still care. You still commit fully. But you do not attach your identity to the result. That attachment is what creates anxiety. So most people negotiate with the future. What if this doesn't work? What if I look stupid? What if I fail? The Stoic does not negotiate. He focuses on what is required now. Preparation, effort, discipline, character. Once that is done, the outcome is released. This mental release is not weakness, it is strength, because it allows you to act boldly without fear of collapse. You can take risks, you can speak honestly, you can try again after failure. Why? Because your confidence no longer depends on success. It depends on integrity of action. Outcomes don't define you, your conduct does. Train this habit, and confidence stops fluctuating with circumstances. It becomes calm, grounded, predictable. and a man with predictable inner stability is very hard to break. 4. Pause before you react. Why calm is the highest form of confidence. Nothing exposes insecurity faster than uncontrolled reaction, anger that erupts instantly, defensiveness that rushes to explain, emotion that spills before thought appears. The Stoics saw this clearly. They understood that reaction is not power. Reaction is loss of control. Confidence is not loud, it is regulated. This is why Stoics trained one simple but difficult habit. Pause before you react. Not for minutes, not for dramatic silence, just long enough to regain authorship of your behavior. Most people live without this pause. Stimulus appears to reaction follows. A comment triggers anger. A look triggers insecurity. A challenge triggers ego. And in that moment, confidence disappears. Why? Because the situation is now in control, not you. The Stoic inserts a gap and a brief space between impulse and action. In that space, 3 things happen. First, emotion loses momentum. Second, perspective returns. Third, choice becomes possible. This pause is not passive. It is decisive restraint. The Stoic does not suppress emotion. He contains it. He acknowledges what he feels without letting it speak for him. This changes how others perceive you. The calmest person in the room sets the emotional tone. When you don't rush to react, you appear grounded, you appear unthreatened, you appear confident, even when the situation is tense. But the deeper effect is internal. Every time you pause instead of reacting, your brain learns something critical. I am not controlled by my impulses. That realization builds confidence fast, because insecurity comes from unpredictability. When you don't know how you'll react, and you don't trust yourself. When you know you can pause, you trust your responses. And trust is the foundation of confidence. Stoics trained this habit daily. In conversations, in conflict, in moments of disrespect. They understood. Silence is not weakness. It is leverage over yourself. You don't need to win every exchange. You don't need to defend every opinion. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. Sometimes the strongest response is control. The calmest person in the room controls the room. Train this habit long enough and confidence becomes visible. Not because you assert it, but because nothing pulls it out of you. 5. Walk with self-respect. Why confidence is communicated before you speak. Confidence is not only a mental state, it is a physical signal. Long before you speak, people register how you carry yourself, your posture, your pace, your stillness. The Stoics understood this instinctively. They knew that the body and the mind are not separate systems. They reinforce each other. When your body moves with hesitation, your mind follows. When your body moves with control, your mind stabilizes. Most people underestimate how much confidence they leak through physical behavior. They rush unnecessarily. They fidget. They shrink their presence. They move as if apologizing for taking up space. None of this comes from humility. It comes from uncertainty. The Stoic corrected this at the level of habit. He walked with self-respect, not arrogance, not dominance. Self-respect. That means standing upright, not rigid, moving deliberately, not hurried, entering spaces without scanning for approval. This is not about performance. It's about alignment. When your body acts as if you belong, your nervous system calms. Breathing slows, vision widens, thoughts steady, confidence becomes embodied. This is why Stoic confidence feels grounded rather than inflated. It's not trying to impress, it's not trying to intimidate. It simply exists. And that existence changes interactions. People respond differently to someone who moves without urgency, who doesn't rush to fill silence, who doesn't shrink under attention. But the deeper benefit is internal. Each time you walk with composure, you send a message to yourself. I am not threatened by being seen. That message matters. It's because insecurity is not fear of others. It is distrust in your own stability. Stoics trained their body to reflect their values. Calm posture reflected calm judgment. Controlled movement reflected controlled reactions. Over time, this feedback loop strengthens confidence. Not because you look confident, but because your body stops contradicting your mind. Your body announces your self-respect before your words do. Train this habit daily, and confidence becomes something you inhabit, not something you try to project. 6. Limit your words. Why fewer words create more authority? One of the most common confidence leaks is unnecessary speech. Explaining too much, justifying decisions no one questioned, filling silence out of discomfort. Most people do this automatically. They speak to reduce tension. They speak to be understood. They speak to be accepted. But Stoics understood something counterintuitive. The need to explain is often a sign of internal doubt. When you trust your position, you don't rush to defend it. When you trust yourself, you don't narrate every thought. The Stoic limited his words not to appear mysterious, but because clarity doesn't require excess. Words carry weight only when they are deliberate. When you say less, your statements land harder, your presence feels steadier, your confidence becomes visible. Over-explaining does the opposite. It tells others, I'm not fully settled. I need you to agree. I'm not sure if this stands on its own. The Stoic avoids this trap. He speaks when there is value to add. He stays silent when words would dilute meaning. This does not make him passive, it makes him precise. Silence, when backed by self-respect, creates psychological space. Others lean in, they listen more closely. They sense that your words are not cheap. But again, the most important effect is internal. Each time you resist the urge to over-explain, you reinforce self-trust. 1. You prove to yourself, my position doesn't need reinforcement. Confidence grows when you stop arguing with the world and start standing calmly within yourself. Stoics were not silent because they were unsure. They were selective because they were settled. They understood that authority is not asserted by volume, it is signaled by restraint. Over-explaining is a confidence leak. Silence is a form of self-command. Train this habit long enough, and confidence stops seeking validation. It becomes quiet, stable, undeniable. 7. Remember your mortality. Why this habit destroys fear at the root. There is one Stoic habit that puts every other habit into perspective, not because it makes you stronger physically, but because it removes the fear that silently undermines confidence. The Stoics called it memento mori. Remember, you will not be here forever. Most people avoid this thought. They think it's dark. They think it's depressing. The Stoics understood it differently. They saw it as liberating because fear feeds on illusion. The illusion that this moment defines you, this mistake will follow you forever, this judgment really matters. When you remember mortality, those illusions collapse. You begin to see clearly how small embarrassment really is, how temporary criticism truly is, how irrelevant most opinions become. The confidence breaks when you give temporary things permanent importance. The Stoic does the opposite. He reminds himself, this will pass. So will I. So I will act accordingly. This habit does not make you reckless. It makes you decisive. When you understand that time is limited, you stop waiting for permission. You stop hesitating out of fear. You stop shrinking to stay comfortable. You don't ask, what if this goes wrong? You ask, is this worth my limited time? That question changes behavior immediately. You speak more honestly, you act more directly, you tolerate less nonsense, not because you're aggressive, but because you're clear. The Stoics didn't think about death to feel weak. They thought about it to strip fear of its leverage. When you accept impermanence, failure loses its sting, judgment loses its weight, approval loses its power. What remains is focus, presence, courage that doesn't need hype. And this is the deepest form of confidence. Not the confidence that says, I will succeed, but the confidence that says, whatever happens, I will not abandon myself. When you remember death, fear loses its grip. Train this habit daily, and confidence stops being emotional. It becomes existential, unshaken by outcomes, unaffected by opinion, grounded in what actually matters. Become mentally unbreakable. Confidence is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with, and it's not something you wait to feel. It is built quietly, daily, through habits that train the mind to stay steady under pressure. The Stoics didn't look confident. They were confident. Because they controlled what they could. They endured what they couldn't. And they refused to let the world decide who they were. These 7 habits don't make you loud. They don't make you arrogant. They make you reliable to yourself. And that is the foundation of an unbreakable mind. Train your inner dialogue. Do hard things daily. Detach from outcomes. Pause before reacting. Move with self-respect. Limit your words. Remember your mortality. Do this long enough, and confidence stops fluctuating. It becomes your default. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop being easy to shake. If this resonated, comment below. I build confidence daily. Because an unbreakable mind is not found. It is forged, one habit at a time.